for Ideal?
We have a whole group here, but
Do
I'm
you?
probably gonna be the spokesman.
Well, that's ideal. I mean, okay.
You worked hard for that one, I could tell.
Oh, I was just trying to cue that up and, you know.
All right, we're live.
We are, okay, well, on the button, 6:30 p.m. I want to welcome everybody to the Thursday, January 16th, 2025 Town Board Workshop in Webster. We have three agenda items tonight, presentation, discussion items, and we'll start out with our first one, which is, I'll call it the 9-month update of Penfield Volunteer Ambulance's coverage of the town of Webster. And Glenn Becker, the president of Penfield Volunteer Ambulance, is here tonight to present that. So Glenn, if you want to take the podium, and I think, Bridget, are you controlling the multiple slides he has? Just kidding.
First is the cover page, and then this is actually the meat of it. Bridget was kind enough to put this in the same format that you've seen in the prior 2 quarters since we took over providing services throughout the town of Webster. And as you can see there, in East Webster, during the last 3 months of the year, we did 576 calls, came in, and 16 of those were mutual aided because obviously all of our trucks are already out on other calls. And in West Webster, there were 686 calls, and 21 of those were mutual aided, for a total of 1262 and 37. So we covered 97.1% of the calls. I think in total, then, for the entire period, in East Webster, we received 2,017 calls, and in West Webster, we received 1,775, and we've covered just a little under 97% of those. I think it's 96.7%.
So I got
And then less community engagement during October to year end. People were busy with the holidays, I guess. So we partook in the Webster Christmas parade, and then other than that, it was just business as usual. Folks coming to the loan cupboard, and CPR classes held both at our own facility, and I didn't even get a count of how many times we went out to either businesses or someone else's facility to provide CPR as well. So and that's kind of it. Unless you have questions.
I have no questions. There certainly appears to be a consistency in number of calls as we look over the different periods. And you're doing a great job with the percentage of calls responded to. Understanding that if you have 8 rigs on the road and the 9th call comes in, that has to be mutual aided. That's just part of the business.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. And that's why we have mutual aid agreements with neighboring agencies.
yes.
What is the industry standard for aid or responding versus mutual aid?
That's a complex question because it depends on different regions of the country that you're in, whether or not you're responding within city, rural, suburban. Penfield and Webster Cross, part of it is qualified as suburban and part of it is qualified as rural. And generally, NELREMS, I believe, is looking for something around 92–93%. That's the Monroe-Livingston County Regional Emergency Medical Services Council. And we try to serve at a higher rate than that. So we tend to staff from a work-life balance or a quality of work-life balance. We like to have our crews have a little more downtime in between calls. So we staff up a little bit higher so that we can reach this percentage. And that means they also have a little bit more downtime to recoup and grab something to eat, maybe take a nap on the overnight shift, so.
Does this CPR class open for the public?
Yes,
And anyone can sign up?
yeah, we're on Eventbrite. Just look for Penfield Ambulance residents and folks that work in Penfield and Webster. We provide that at no cost. If they do need a professional rescue card or they need a card, we do pass along what we pay for the card as a charge to the folks.
Okay, great, thank you.
But actually providing the class, which I think in this area is now up around $80 per person, we do that for free.
Because I used to take those classes, that's why.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's interesting because that question you had, Jennifer, it's a great question. I mean, and I've heard the answer so many different ways over the last 4 years. It is not a one size fits all for the call coverage. But it's interesting because where they're covering slightly under 97%, which is above what Milgram has supported. We've had some interesting conversation with our vetting committee that's chaired by Russ Ziskin and by Councilman Cahill, because some of the people on that committee that are EMS professionals that are your comrades, I'll say Glenn, wondered if that was too high of a coverage rate and if it meant inefficient use of your staff. And you and Dan explained why you do it, which I think made complete sense. One of the things that we haven't been tracking on stats is it seemed as though Penfield Volunteer Ambulance was always in the mutual aid world. The theory, I think, would be is that you scratch my back when I'm out on a call, and you'll scratch my back, or I'll scratch yours when you're on a call. So as the year goes by, one EMS agency, maybe in an abutting town, would have just as many mutual aid calls coming where you cover them as they cover for you. But you have historically been an agency that does several mutual aid calls outside of your coverage area of Penfield and Webster. And that's something that came to, it manifested during when we were researching what to do with EMS back in 2022, 23. That I was always impressed by that is that it seemed like 20% of your overall calls back then were outside of your coverage area. You were helping those other, municipalities and people like that.
Right.
I don't know if you still can do that many outside when now you have all of a sudden gone from 6,000 to 7,000 calls a year between Penfield and mutual aid out, and now you just brought on what's annualized about another 5,000 calls in Webster.
So we did a total, we received calls a little over 11,300. And our overall percentage both for Penfield and Webster is close to that same percentage.
Yeah.
I think it's actually maybe a point worse in the town of Penfield. And so our mutual aid out was very high. I don't have those numbers with me tonight, but it's probably high up, pretty close to that percentage again.
Yeah, which I think is an admirable thing for
Yeah.
your agency. I know that, leading up to 24, some of the first responders, fire, police, EMS, were concerned that Webster, for how large of a community it is, socioeconomically, how it's a pretty good community, that we seem to be getting more mutual aid calls into our area than our previous EMS agency was doing outside of the area. And what I've gotten over the last 9 months is that the firefighters and the EMS agencies are very happy with what is happening in Webster, is that things have settled down, that they don't have to backfill in Webster because Penfield Volunteer Ambulance is doing a wonderful job.
I also think that, I've not been on the committee with you and Councilman Cahill, but I know that overall in the industry, staffing is very challenging.
Mhm.
And I think it speaks to the integrity of your organization that you're able to staff it the way that you do and give downtime and a little better overall health to your employees by staffing it that way. And obviously by having percentage of calls responded to. Doing a great job.
Well, it's been a conscious effort to make sure that they've got a good place to be at, and they've got some downtime. So that it makes a difference in the turnover. So it pays,
Sure.
I think it pays for itself in less training, less turnover, in my mind. So,
That makes
Absolutely.
sense.
Yes.
It's interesting, I mean, we have a little fluff time here, we're out of schedule, so. We have, really the last couple of weeks, since this board, I think it was December 5th, did a resolution to enter into long-term contract negotiations with benefit volunteer ambulance. Really, Glenn, I mean, you and Dan and Councilman Cahill and myself and Russ and Paul Adams, we've had a couple meetings, we're focusing on that long-term. So the short term, which we are coming out of, which was 9 months at this point, I guess, through the end of December, we're halfway through January. What a difference a year makes, because 1 year ago, in January, Councilman Cahill and myself were, I'll say, invited to the Penfield Volunteer Ambulance board meeting, their monthly board meeting, and for good reasons, they were very concerned about what type of investment they were going to make into helping the town of Webster in a short term. And we were very candid with your board at that time. We can't get into a long-term agreement with you right now. Our previous EMS agency had just given a 90-day notice that they were exiting their contract, and we weren't going to make any knee-jerk reactions. And I appreciated your leadership at your board saying, you know, you're looking for us to hire and potentially put more ambulances on. You want us to do that, but you're not ready to make a long-term commitment to us. And those are the type of things that are, you know, hiring, whatever, is a long-term thing. And I think we had a good meeting last January where we were very candid with each other, and, you know, we have to follow this process. We can't make a lazy decision on this. This is for, you know, for a town's EMS, which is a very important function for the long term. And your leadership, I think, appreciated that, and we had a good, it led to our short-term contract that was executed in March. A year later, John Cahill and myself were, I'll say, invited back just 3 nights ago.
Mhm.
And that was a very different meeting with your board. Because your board, I think, at that point, it was a much more casual meeting, because what had been said would be done and promises have been carried out in the last year. So it makes it a lot easier. We were just giving them, basically, their board, an update on where Glenn and Dan and John and I were, for lack of better terms, and Paul, in long-term contract negotiations. So, knock on wood, we're hoping that a couple of drafts, I don't mean beers out at the bars, I mean drafts, Kyle, of the contract. Then we're gonna, Kyle, you'll be brought in once we get some layman term drafts, and I think your attorney for Penfield Volunteer Ambulance will be brought in, and then Kyle and your attorney will do their thing. And if all goes well, we had told the Penfield Volunteer Ambulance Board that it could be as early as the February 20th town board meeting to authorize the supervisor to execute that long-term contract. So knock on wood, because I think everybody would like to get this thing put to bed.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Glenn?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
Awesome.
You hitting the slopes tomorrow?
I will be on the slopes again. I was there today, I was there Tuesday, I'll be there tomorrow.
All right.
Probably over the weekend.
Good for you.
You're the man.
All right, take
Thanks,
care.
Glenn. Well, Bridget, I still left you a 5-minute buffer. All right, our second agenda item tonight is a presentation by our esteemed communications director, Bridget Harvey, on the style guide for the town of Webster governments. Style.
Esteemed, thank you.
Yeah, esteemed, style, and government, all in the same sentence.
It's the
Okay.
first time I've heard that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me back here. I'm happy to share the final draft of our style guide. Just to reiterate, a style guide is a document that outlines best practices for maintaining consistency throughout communications across an organization. So what that means for our style guide here at the town of Webster is that it provides recommendations for Webster employees and other representatives of the town on key elements when considering creating, publishing, and distributing content and materials on behalf of the town of Webster. So what's the purpose of a style guide for the town of Webster? The purpose for the style guide is to expand consistency through internal and external communications distributed by us and those who are acting on our behalf. By promoting consistency, we avoid making our audiences reinterpret our words over and over, and we help residents and other consumers of our content best understand what we're trying to say in our messages. Some of the topics that were addressed in the style guide are our audience, general editorial style, formatting, capitalization, treatment of names. So what this dovetails into is an initiative I'm very excited about, which is the creation of brand guidelines. So what brand guidelines are is updating and looking for a unified brand and look for materials that are branded coming from the town of Webster. So how this begins is with a brief survey that will be going out to all users or all staff members of the town of Webster regarding the current branding and use of branded materials. From there, a group of staff members who have volunteered to work on this initiative will start meeting to take some of that feedback and turn it into a plan for updating our branding to make it consistent across the boards. We have several departments who are currently using different letterhead and other branding throughout their print and digital collateral, and we're looking to create some parity across the board with that to help the trustworthiness of our brand and add some continuity across the organization. So what are some of these elements that are addressed in a branding guideline set? That's color value use, typeface, scaling and sizing of logos, scaling and sizing and use of the town seal, letterhead, all those things that you think of when thinking of marketing materials for the town. Going back to the style guide, that is going to be posted, and eventually the brand guidelines will be too, on our website for viewing by the public and even for adaptations for other brands and organizations. And I am happy to answer any questions about either of those initiatives.
The format is pretty nice. You know, thank you for your time and effort for doing this. The only thing that I mentioned to you earlier, if we can just put like a friendly user for our the people to when they get into the website, because sometimes it's difficult.
Yeah.
And also if we have like a hidden gems here in Webster Village, which is the museum. And I would like to see if it's possible we can feature that, up there as marketing.
Yep, in the cover page there,
Excuse me?
in the cover page of the document
Yes,
there?
yes, I would appreciate it very much if you can do that.
Sure.
Thank you.
I think this is great, Bridget. I was reading through it the other day, and I felt like I was back in grammar class. And it reminded me of a few things that I don't do correctly. And I think it'll lead to, obviously, better communication from the town. But it's a good reminder for everyone.
Absolutely, thanks.
Yes, of course, I still put two sentences between, or two spaces between sentences, but I'm getting over it.
Yes,
I still do that too.
and I'll mention that
Very close.
these are recommendations, they're not hard and fast rules
Yes.
for every communication that goes out, but I think it, especially in some of those cases where something's a little more urgent and has to go out, and you find yourself not necessarily having people in your department or outside of your department being able to get eyes on something, it takes some of the guesswork out of
Yes,
those elements.
and as I said, not just recommendations, but reminders.
Yes, absolutely.
As part of this, are you considering a change to the logo in the rebranding or working around the existing logo?
It's definitely a possibility. That's one of the elements that's on the survey that's going out tomorrow is updates to the seal, creation of a logo, taking everyone's temperature about what updates need to be done as we're creating it. It's a really good opportunity as we create brand guidelines to consider where we can update things that may be antiquated now in 2025.
Sounds good.
I've been through that with another organization, when we look at rebranding and changing logos and changing all of that, and it's quite a rabbit hole, I'm just trying to say.
I had initially thought that that could be a part of the style guide, and as I got into it, I was like, this needs to be a bigger conversation. We need to have more departments and representation throughout the town involved, because then you have buy-in, and then you have different perspectives based on the audiences that we're reaching out to.
I was in Albany several years ago, and I was looking at a plaque on Senator Mazzolio's wall, and it had the town seal. I can't remember what he received that plaque for. But I actually had to call town hall while I was there, because I didn't completely understand the town seal, especially the upper left-hand corner with what looks like an EKG readout. I was told that that's actually for technology.
I always wondered, so thank you.
Yes, and I have to say that today, as much as in the history of the town, that's pretty pertinent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, just my 2 cents.
Absolutely.
Well, having been in a lot of these meetings, I've watched how Bridget's mind kind of came around to the fact that, ooh, we better, like you said, but branding and logos and all that, that's a bigger issue. If we can get some consensus, blocking and tackling, and get that good on the style guide, then we'll move on to that. And in the middle of it all, I hope you don't mind me saying, some of our departments have started to test AI. And I like the departments who are testing it, because they're very thoughtful on how they're testing it. And in cutting twice, measuring twice, cutting once. They are aware that this is a beta, for lack of better terms. And by no means, if anybody who jumps in and says, oh, I'll let AI write my letters and stuff, beware. And so we've looked at each other in these meetings, and we're like, how do we even incorporate that? And we can't even fathom right now when that would happen and how. So it is interesting, but there's no question, and I think everybody has seen it, is that, we have, can you imagine if, I'll use Coca-Cola, imagine that, I don't know why. There is, one of the most recognizable brands and logos in the world, and they probably have, I don't know, 100,000 employees, maybe more worldwide, and I can assure you, their letterhead that comes out everywhere from them is very consistent. And we, at the town of Webster, with our 400 employees, I've seen no less than 6 different letterheads.
Yeah, that.
And, letting people have their individualism and whatever is one thing, but I think we've got to rein that back in. And, there's gotta be a style that is consistent, that comes out of, consistent product that comes out of the town of Webster. Regardless of whether it's the police department, Parks and Rec department, the highway department, the town clerk department, you gotta have some consistency there. I think
Sure.
anybody who's been involved in an organization knows why that is.
And I'll speak to what you just said in terms of one of the questions that's included on the survey that will go out to staff. It speaks to if your department has branding that's distinct from the town, what is the benefit to the town for doing that? And with that question, I hope that we can work in some compromise or find those areas where that distinction is necessary. Certainly, I can think of the police department where that's a necessary
Right.
distinction. But other areas, maybe it's time that we migrate towards more parity between the town and the.
Well done.
Are we gonna give Jerry and the crew that much extra time? Uh-oh. Well, thanks. Well, thanks for letting me be on the team and letting me do the meetings with the documents.
Of course.
Yeah, it's fun. Well, our third and last item at the workshop tonight is a presentation on a potential expansion plans for Ideal Group Manufacturing that currently is located at 999 Picture Parkway. And it looks like we have a slew of the Ideal Manufacturing team, including who's at the podium right now, their legal counsel, can I say his team, you got Jerry Goldman from Woods Old.
I want to save that word for others, but that's fine.
Well, you know what, Jerry? I mean, I think the work you did for the town on Seeker, on Cove Fairlight, we're forever grateful.
That's fine. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. Kyle, welcome. My name is Jerry Goldman. I'm the attorney and agent for Ideal Manufacturing. With us this evening are members of the Stroyer family who are the principals of Ideal Manufacturing. Ben is, if everyone can just acknowledge, Ben is here, Matt is here, Lee is here, and Brian White is the project engineer from the McMahon LaRue Group.
This is Ian here tonight.
I'm sorry?
This is Ian here tonight.
Ian, I'm sorry, Ian.
It's okay.
I kind of blanked out. Ian Kutchman, who is, along with Brian White, are the project engineers for the proposal. Our site is one which is depicted on the graphic, but also part of our application materials. Ideal Manufacturing has been a real Webster success story. It's gone from relatively small type of business to being a market leader in what's referred to as high-capacity helical piles, which are a necessary element of the construction business and construction industry. The Stroyer family has had a great deal of success and is in need of, one, enhancing their facilities for their primary use, which entails increasing the size of their building by about 21,000 square feet and adding an 11,400 square foot processing building adjacent to it. But also, the Stroyers have acquired property all the way down to Document Drive. And in that area, they're talking about constructing some flex space buildings, a training building, and an office building, as depicted on the plan. Just to orient everybody, this parcel is located on the south side of Picture Parkway. It is to the west of the town's highway garage. There is a decent buffer between us and some residential property which is located on the hard road frontage. So we believe that this is an ideal, if I can use the term, use of this property to try to bring it to its full capacity on the site. As I'm sure you're aware, all uses and all approvals which are necessary in the OP district require a referral from the town board. And it's basically all that you have to do at this stage of what we are talking about. And as part of that, there's a requirement that 3 findings be considered. And they're addressed in our letter of intent. One is as conceptually sound that meets a community need. We believe that maintaining the viability of our local businesses and industry is a community need which needs to be prioritized. In addition, the plan does encourage sound development in the interest of safety and general welfare of the public. As you can see, we would be talking about access from both Document Drive and from Picture Parkway, and as well talking about substantial landscaping being installed. And the third is showing a development plan in harmony with the town comprehensive plan. The town comprehensive plan contemplates in the OP district office uses and light industrial uses and on the site. So all of that being said, what we're here tonight is for referral to the planning board. The planning board has worked out of this and reviewed the site plan, also in review of the uses themselves and making sure that all is according to Hoyle. And we look forward to formally starting that process with a referral from this board this evening. I see that there's a potential resolution on your agenda later in the evening, and obviously we're here to answer any questions that the board may have.
So the presentation was done all by Jerry. We're not going to get...
Everyone can stand up if they want to and speak, but you know.
Actually, one of the 3 Stroyers or Ian might, if there's questions from the board, because I will say that, you know, and Ben and Lee and Jay will attest to this. I think I first met you guys, Ben and Jay, back in mid-2011. And I've been in a lot of meetings with them and with the Advantage Group, with Tony Kashani, with Joshua Tuzo. This has been percolating for a couple of years that led to this rendition that you have on the screen right now. So I say this because I don't have a lot of questions about it because I know the lineage of everything that has led up to this point.
Yeah.
I don't think the other town board members have, this might be the first time you're seeing it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we have some extra time because I'm gonna let them go.
Yeah, I have a tendency to serve as a master of ceremonies or moderator here and call on people within our group as the questions come up if we can't handle them. But for those of you who have visited the site, there is a need for us to be able to enhance the facilities on the site to make the business and continue the viability of the business. So to that extent, yeah, the Stroyer family is looking forward to continuing a very successful run in the town of Webster at this location.
Seeing this properties already zoning for industry, industrial and offices.
Correct.
You know, so therefore there's no need to be any change only moderate, to revise.
No, there's
for
no.
the zoning.
There's no approval required for rezoning. There is, for light industrial uses, a special permit. We need to work with Josh to figure out exactly what approvals are necessary and what boards they go in front of and everything else. But we'll work that out in the concept stage as we proceed.
Yeah, because I know we are planning to do a comprehensive plan. So this not going to be any interference, or we have to go back and modify it
you, and I think it's very important. The elements, the elements which exist, and for those who may remember a long time ago, this was Jostens Manufacturing when it was first constructed, quite a long time ago. So this was done at a time when this was zoned industrial, and now it had been rezoned as part of the early 2000s to office park. And the elements which are proposed to be added are primarily office, which makes a lot of sense. To the west of us, east of us, excuse me, on Document Drive is the town's highway garage. But if you go down, Document Drive, you wind up at the school district's facility. So this is kind of a quasi-industrial area in the way that it's been developed. So that's why we think that it's consistent and really fits very well here.
Thank you.
I would agree that it's consistent and it fits well, and I think it's wonderful to have a business that's in Webster and that is thriving and expanding. It would be horrible if you needed to expand your business and you would have to leave our community to go somewhere else to expand. And I know from my experience on the planning board, and I can see it on this plan, there's very thoughtful consideration for buffering and landscaping. And as a result of this, it's gonna clean up the site and fix some things, I'm sure.
Yep.
And make it nicer overall, so I don't have any questions. I think it'll be a very good project.
No, I have no questions. Jen, you pretty much stated everything that I had any comment on. I am very grateful that you're considering expanding on that site
Thank
and
you.
not looking for something else in Monroe County or Wayne County or wherever. So we're grateful you're looking to Webster. And I do know that I've driven down there a few times to go to the highway department. There is quite a bit of outdoor storage sometimes of materials, and I would hope that with this expansion, you'll be able to take care of some of that. Understanding that this is not a residential street, I get it. We're talking about the highway department and manufacturing.
Thank you.
And at least you know your road in and out will always be clear of snow.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. Right now, we have you slotted at the 7:30 town board meeting for the 9th resolution of 10. I'm gonna make an executive decision on that. We're gonna move that up to number 1 and vote on that. We still can't start that meeting until 7:30 by law. But unless, we almost, we have to get to 7:07 right now. I'm sure that you don't want to be here all night for a board meeting unless you want to watch grass grow. So we'll move that up, but certainly from the comments that were made by the board members, I foresee in 23 minutes a successful vote on that resolution. And for us at the planning board, if that's a successful resolution,
Thank you.
We greatly appreciate that.
so,
At least some of us will be staying. I don't know if everyone's going.
yeah.
Not that everyone
We've
is.
waited a while, we might stay just to watch this.
Yeah.
Come down.
I don't think it's gonna be a long board meeting tonight at 7:30, but you never know what's coming through that door in the next 20 minutes, so we'll see. But other than that, unless any of the board members have any questions or comments about any of the workshop presentations tonight?
No.
Well, that concludes tonight's workshop, and we will go off air now and come back at 7:30 with the town board. Good night, everybody. I don't know, I hear it too. I just wondered if I was going